Hello and welcome back to Pure Michigan Sports. And once again, it is a wonderful week to be a fan of sports in the state of Michigan. Christian Peck-Dimit, Alex Deimel. We're wasting no time today. Let's get right into it. The Lions coming off a win. Michigan, the win streak's at 3. And where I think we should start, the hottest team in baseball
The
will
gritty
continue their
fucking
season.
Tigers. The gritty fucking Tigers. I mean, it's. I think so many teams you've had those moments where you're just kind of you're sitting there and it's all of a sudden you think you're dead and you're just dead in the water, and that's exactly where I was for a good 5 minutes because I was an idiot and forgot that this team does not quit. There's a
You're
reason this
saying
team is.
during the game you gave up.
Oh, the middle of the game today. When we went down 2-1, I was like, it is done. It is over. I was absolutely that fan. I will own up to it. Um, and then I proceeded to scream so loud that my one of my housemates is a dog that lives with us, and that dog started clawing at his door for a good 20 minutes just because I think he was so freaked out because I was screaming. You can have the Lions, making that run last year. You have Michigan winning the national championship. You have all of these things. It has been 12 years. 12 years. That's over half of my time alive. It's been 12 years.
It
Just,
feels
just
damn good.
take that in for a second. That's all I could think about is especially, and if you're not a Tigers fan, I do not expect you. I do expect you to be pissed off with how often the fact that how often the fact has been brought up that the Tigers were 10 games back, earlier on in August, and they've made this incredible run. They had 0.2%. I totally expect you to be like just pissed. Oh my God, I'm done hearing it. I know they're good. Yeah? Well, you didn't have to go through 12 years of fucking misery. None of you did. So you're going to hear about it over and over and over again as this team continues to win.
I think especially the fact that it comes against the Astros, man. You got to remember, this is the
Josh
hottest
Hader's
team in
making more than the
baseball.
whole team. Josh Hader is making more
Exactly.
than the whole team.
It is the youngest team in baseball. It's a small market. We have no real superstar. They mentioned it on the broadcast a number of times, no 25 homer guy, right? This is a team of underdogs. It's a team of scrappy players. You got Scoobs, you got a superstar, and the rest of that bullpen, you saw it today. The whole pitching outfit, we went through 7 pitchers, and that was the plan because Hinch plans that way. And you come back and you're the hottest team in baseball after what was a ridiculously terrible large portion of your season. And now you beat maybe the most hated team in baseball. Come on. How do you not love this? You don't even
I
have to be a fan of the Tigers.
I saw on that note, I saw so many tweets today from people that had no stake in the game that were just like, you can't not root for this team. You cannot like be so happy for the Tigers and Tigers fans after that. I literally had to switch it up just to get the most Detroit as possible in the screen today, just because that's how it's been all day. I think I woke up, the first thing I did was go on my phone and play Welcome to Detroit. Literally in the car, I was playing Journey and Bob Seger. Like, it was just one of those days. And it is a day that, as much as it's been great to have winning, this one felt so much different. And I think the biggest part of that is going into the last year. Let's compare it to some other teams. Going into last year, you had Michigan, who it was really national championship or bust. With the talent you had on that team, with the
Absolutely.
coaching staff you had on the team, and all of the shit that went down with Connor Stallions and all that stuff, it was expected. Then let's move to the Red Wings, where you have that moment where you're there, you're playing so well. Then you go on that streak that our listeners have heard me mention a million times, where all of a sudden that the life was just taken out of that team, and it was too late. It was too little, too late. Even at the end when we thought we had a shot. Then you go to the Lions. Great run in the playoffs. Beautiful run. Again, all of this was expected. The Lions were, I believe, the favorite to win the division last year. And
Yeah,
yes, they did.
NFC championship trip was a little bit out of the ordinary, but certainly I get what you mean.
But
This team
think about
was
it.
not supposed to be here.
No, nobody in their right mind. There's a reason you've heard the name or heard the number 2% or 0.2%. Sorry, so many times, because just like that, you get rid of one guy. You get rid of one guy, and the season takes off. And now you're playing a division rival in the division series.
That's the biggest thing is you look ahead. So many Tigers fans are entranced with the rear view mirror, right? What just happened? You just beat the Astros. You just went on this run. Right now, you're the hottest team in baseball. Let's look ahead for a second. You've got the Guardians who, yes, are having a phenomenal season. Yes, have the best bullpen in baseball. And damn it, if that's not scary. But come on, the opportunity in the divisional round to play not just a divisional rival, but sports wise, the Ohio Michigan border, that rivalry just heightens it up a little bit more. It's got to feel good. And I'm not saying that we have this great chance in this round, obviously, in.
I am.
Okay.
I am, without a doubt.
In a longer series, though,
in a longer series,
pitching comes into play more, and you can't rely. Scoob's got you one of the 2 wins you need, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, let's be completely honest here. One yesterday, I don't know if you win without Scoops. I genuinely don't. It's not like hitting was.
Yeah.
It's not like hitting was as bad as we've seen. We've seen much worse hitting performances, especially against worse teams. But you got a guy that's going to go out and give you 6, 7 Ks every single time he's out.
Every single time.
Every single time. And then let's talk about it. It's only recently, I guess, and recently being, since 2000 and on, that you've seen teams go to this, chaos system of pitching like they had today, where you just are throwing different relievers all day, all game. I think you had one guy that went 2 innings today. That was it. And 5 years ago, that was unheard of. You didn't not have a starting rotation. You didn't have bullpen days. Nobody did that. And the fact that AJ Hinch and Scott Harris have gone out and found a way that is going to not only get this team to the playoffs, but help them succeed in the playoffs for $18.8 million. That's the number of the day. That number
I don't know how we
will be
haven't
talked
mentioned
about.
Yet.
That number will be talked about long after the World Series is over. The guy that we hit pretty freaking well today, and Josh Hader, is getting paid more than our entire playoff roster. And I don't know for sure, but I believe it's the same thing with Ryan Presley. And if not, it's pretty damn close. 2 of the guys that are supposedly 2 of the best relievers in baseball, 2 of the best postseason relievers in baseball. And this gritty, young, energetic team went out and did it. And it's taking advantage of everything. It wasn't exactly a picturesque win. I mean, you have the wild pitch all of a sudden to tie the game after going down 2-1. And then you manage to get the bases loaded. I don't know about you. My heart was pounding when I'm like, oh my God, the guy that we've had to send down how many times since he's been called up, it's now on him to, bring us home in Spencer Torkelson, where I was like, holy shit, I could die right here. He happens to get the walk, and then Ibanez clutched up down the line. When was the last time you heard Andy Ibanez and clutch in the same sentence?
I mean, that's this team, though.
That's my point.
It's
literally my point.
Remember, you traded Flaherty at the deadline. I'm not saying that this was what you had in mind, that you weren't being sellers at the deadline.
Oh, yeah.
But in the back of your mind, when you trade Flaherty, Hinch knows this chaos lineup that you mentioned, that's what you're going to have to use. That's what you're going to have to do. 7 different pitchers, and including Jackson Jobe, who, we can talk about that later or not if we want to, had a, lights too bright moment. But this is the lineup that you're going to get. A ton of different pitchers thrown at you. You're going to get a pinch hitter late in this game that gives you the win. I mean, come on. That's Tigers baseball right now.
It's so much credit goes to AJ Hinch. And this is a guy that I think it's safe to say that fans have gone kind of like this with. There were times where we didn't understand what in the God's, green earth he was doing, and times where we loved him. And this 2-game series has shown why he was hired. He was not hired to be that regular season guy. He was hired for his experience and expertise in postseason baseball, which you can say, and trust me, I've been the king of completely shitting on the Astros for what they did a few years ago. It was a shitty thing. I was shocked when we hired him. But look at how he has managed this team, not just on that run, but in the playoffs. Going ballsy, doing the righty on lefty. And to talk about Job, yeah, you're probably thinking, oh my God, this guy's had 3 innings of baseball experience, all against the worst team in professional baseball, and you just put him against a baseball powerhouse in the playoffs. Like, what are you thinking? Anyone that is blaming Jackson Job for that inning entirely is a lunatic. You cannot have missed throws like Torque did. I get you making the diving play, but when you have time to get up and get the ball out, you cannot be making Jake Rogers have to make a scoop play like that. If you're Matt Vierling, your job, you've done it a million times. Catch the ball in 2 steps. Make the fucking throw home. That's your job. And Job's job is to let his defense play, to let his defense do the work to get him out of it. He's not going to throw a strikeout every freaking at bat. So I do think, yes, it's ballsy, but it's what we talked about. It's pitching chaos. It's exactly what it's going to be. And don't be surprised if we're down, or we're up 1 run in a very tight situation, and Hinch throws him in again. It was not all necessarily on him, and they called him up full well knowing this is the situation they'd be using him in. They did not call him up just to sit there and, chew seeds the whole time. He is on that team to play.
And that's a good point, Alex. I think at the end of the day, whether you blame him, the defense, like you said, there were some missed throws in there, some missed plays behind him. Whatever you credit that poor inning to, and certainly a heart-stopping one for Tigers fans, he's probably going to get another shot. Whether the run ends in a week or so here against the Indians, or if it goes on the Guardians, sorry, if it goes on further, he's going to get more innings, and it's nice to see. I think him get them under his belt, whether for better or for worse.
Yeah, and you're not alone. I think unless I completely messed up, one of the play-by-plays guys today literally said Indians instead of Guardians. So you're not the only one. But let's look ahead to that for a second. This is a Guardians team that, yes, they won the division. They clinched that 2 seed. This is a Guardians team without Shane Bieber. A team that its hitting has slowed down exponentially, where they were in tight games with teams like the Twins, who were on the back half of an awful run. This is not a team that was necessarily putting up big numbers towards the end. And you'd be a fool not to think that this team has a shot going into the series with the ride they've been on. I mean, especially considering, can you imagine the ease of the path the Astros would have if they would have won that series? I mean, we know the Yankees aren't necessarily cut out for it in the playoffs. They haven't been for years, and they keep doing the same thing. Orioles are gone. You don't have to worry about them. It's very nice looking forward to. And the last team the Tigers beat when they were in the ALCS, the New York Yankees. And yes, I'm getting so far ahead of myself here. And I know that. I know that, and I can understand that. But I think you cannot count this team out. This is a team that people had completely written off going into that Houston series. And even Tigers fans themselves. I mean, if you look at, I don't even know if you can do the exact numbers or if I can do the exact numbers in my head. The first 4 in the Houston batting order versus the first 4 in the Tigers batting order.
Oh, man.
I think you got Altuve, Tucker, Jordan, Bregman. Versus, what was it yesterday? Let me look. I know it was like nowhere close to the. It was nowhere close to the caliber. That's not the game.
You're looking for yesterday's?
Yeah, for yesterday's.
Yesterday you
like
went
that.
Vierling, Malloy, Green, Ibanez.
Yeah, think about that. I think I don't know the numbers off the top of my head, but I think those four might not even be making combined what each of those guys is making.
Oh, individually, yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely.
and the Moneyball, less money won. It goes to show that teams like the Yankees and the Phillies, you can go out, you can spend all of that money, you can build that star-studded, talented team. At the end of the day, it comes down to Detroit sports fans' favorite word, and that is
Grit, baby.
thank you.
It's grit, baby.
It's
And it,
great.
it
And it
does feel good. It really does. And that series that you think we have a chance in, and I don't know, odds wise, Vegas certainly does as well. It starts on Saturday, obviously in Cleveland. That is game one, plus 125 for Detroit right now, money line in that game one. I don't know. Not so bad.
on that note, I believe it's Tanner Beebe scheduled to get the start for the Guardians in that first game. This is a Tanner Beebe that has a 1-3 record with a 5.28 ERA and 27 strikeouts in 6 appearances against the Tigers. Last appearance would have been July 29th, in which he went 7 innings, gave up 6 innings, 7 hits, 2 runs.
I like the sound
I
of that.
want to say only 2 strikeouts. He did get the win, but he also had a loss to the Tigers earlier on. I believe that, yes, that would have been July 10th, where 7 innings, 5 hits, 4 runs. I'll take another one of those games. Especially if you're trotting Scoobs on the mound to game one, I'll take 4 runs any day knowing Scoobs is going to get the job done.
You have to think that Scoobs will trot out for game one, and as incredible as that is, we do have other Michigan sports riding very high right now. We'll start with another team that we thought was sort of dead in the water. That's U of M football, whose win streak is back at 3. Teams back in the top 10, albeit at 10. But you've now got a game in Washington that will feature my pick of the week, then a bye week, then you're in Illinois. I mean, are we feeling a little bit more lukewarm about Michigan now? Is the water starting to boil over in the Deimel household?
Now, this game will be a big test in my mind. It's clear
Real
that
okay.
Vegas and I know we've been saying that for a while, but it's clear. I mean, Vegas doesn't even have us favored. We are not favored against an unranked Washington team that lost how much last year? I believe they just lost to what did they? They already lose the Apple Cup, or who did they lose to?
They're what, 2-3 right now?
A while ago.
Or 3-2. Yeah.
Yeah, like we 3-2. They are 3-2. ESPN Matchup Predictor has them at a 58% chance to win, and this is a Washington team that lost to Rutgers, Rutgers and Washington State, and only beat a poor Eastern Michigan team by 21.
I've got
And
we'll just
Michigan's the underdog.
we'll just go with this right now. I've got my pick of the week as Michigan money line plus 114. That feels obvious to me. In a game following a game, excuse me, that you got a lot more out of Alex Orji, albeit 86 yards as the bar for a lot more. Should say something about the state of your offense, but Kalel Mullings continues to be absolutely incredible. The defense obviously gave up some late scores there in Minnesota or against Minnesota, but I think this is a defense you trust to go on the road and win you a game in Washington, even if the offense sputters as it has at times a little bit. I really think the test is more a couple weeks from now in Illinois. Regardless, though, I think this week and this week and 3 weeks from now, 2 weeks from now, when you play Illinois, these two combined games tells you a lot about your season in the different. I mean, there was a time where we were flirting with 7-5 in the idea that you could get through this at 3 losses this season. I think says a lot about where you are right now. And obviously the expectations being that low is something in and of itself. But I don't know. Obviously, the reactions to that USC game were very different for you and I. I was a little bit hotter coming out of that, feeling a lot better about it. what does it take for you to start feeling like maybe this is an outside look at college football playoff type of team? What do you think? What are
Well,
your expectations at for
I'm
that?
gonna answer that question with a question, and that is, how much do you think the success that this team has had is still attributed to Jim Harbaugh? In the sense that this is a Jim Harbaugh team that he recruited and he has brought. Yes, he's not involved in the game plan anymore. But you have to at least assume that some of that game plan that he came up with, that he structured, and even the Jesse Minters and a lot of that staff is still implemented there because you knew it worked for a lot of those guys.
How does
And
that
I
affect any of this
in no
though?
way
How does that apply?
part of me thinks this isn't a there's not enough. And again, I think it's so much of college football now has come down to simply recruiting and getting that talent. Orgy was obviously not like anywhere close to the starter last year, but when he came in, he killed it. And then you started that year, and there were so many questions about him. You had questions about Davis Warren. You had questions about so many guys that you did not see play very much. We also, again, that was a 3-point loss to Minnesota, a Minnesota team that
But
lost
win
to,
over Minnesota.
or excuse me, 3-point win over Minnesota, a Minnesota team that lost to North Carolina, a North Carolina team that just got blown out by James Madison. Yes, I know I just did a lot of,
We can play the
that train.
transitive, yeah,
You can play the
transitive
transitive
property of
game all you
college
want,
football.
but I do wonder how much there is to go off of it in the true talent of this team. And yes, there is obviously something, like you said, Khalil Mullins. You've got Will Johnson. You've got, I mean, by far the best player in college football. But how much can you really say about this team so far? You had JJ for how long? You had Blake Corum for how long? You had Roman Wilson for how long? And you watched and saw that this team, talent wise, had so much to go off of, and it just got better every year. And then they all left.
Yeah, this is the new age of college football, though. Every year, you've got to deal with a new team. It's like you're playing in the pros, where you've got the draft as your high school recruits, and you've got free agency with the transfer portal. You are building a new team year in and year out. I don't give a damn about recruiting. I mean, I give a lot of damns about recruiting. Shouldn't say it like that. But Harbaugh not being here anymore shouldn't just make you say, well, we have to wait 3 years till it's all of my guys for us to actually gauge this team. This is still a college football team that did really pretty solid in the transfer portal that has in a year, right? It's their season. So what if you just happen to be coming off a national championship? So what if half your coaches are gone? I mean, you still have the autonomy of being your own team this year.
Yes, and we apologize as we just dealt with some technical difficulties, which is probably why my background looks a little changed. I do think a lot of this comes from me, and this is completely irrational as a fan, as I often am. Um, I just did not have high expectations for this team. I did not expect us to get past USC. I did expect us to be favored against a Washington team that lost way more than we did, and we've at least continuously proved that we can win. I think a lot of it for me is I am not confident yet in Sharon. And should I be? Absolutely. He's the guy that got us past Ohio State. He got us past Penn State last year. I should have much more confidence in him than I do right now. But at the end of the day, I think so much of last year you still can attribute to Harbaugh, even when he was in to take the reins. And there's still not a lot. There's not a huge sample size of him as a head coach. And what we did see so far, unfortunately, there were some struggles. I mean, you do have the Texas game, and yes, Texas is one of the best teams in college football. But there were plays in that Texas game that any team should defend or any team should play against. This is not a complete team yet. So I do kind of have some difficulties in believing that this, could be like a 10-2 or even a successful playoff team. Yes, you do have the 12-man, but this is a very competitive conference this year.
It's a very good point. I think that's well put, that you just sort of, as much as this team can win, can get by Illinois, it does feel incomplete, right? It feels like the ceiling for this team is low enough that you just don't feel that good going into Oregon, going into Ohio State, no matter how many times Kalel Mullins runs for 100 yards, runs for 2 touchdowns, no matter how many pick sixes Will Johnson has. It's cool to see. It feels like a team with a low ceiling. And I think we'll use that to transition into a team with a very high ceiling right now, coming off of a 42-29 win at home, Monday night, prime time game over the Seahawks. Tell me if that didn't feel damn good, not just to win, but know that everybody saw it on prime time. Ben Johnson was pulling out the fucking kitchen sink and everything. Maybe I'm biased because I got Kenneth Walker, who I know is an MSU guy, and that's another Michigan reference here, and Amon-Ra combining for 53 points on a Monday night that I was down 50 in fantasy on. But that was a damn good win for these Lions. That, hey, let's not forget, last week we're sort of going back and forth on this team, right? We're sort of thinking, hey, we're not too far from not hitting the panic button, but finding where it's at, knowing where the panic button is in relation to this team. And suddenly you've got Jared going 100
18
on
for
the
18.
completion percentage. It's incredible. This team offensively still feels unstoppable. Yes, there was some Tyrion Arnold things. Yes, there was some defensive issues. You had the safety at the end, but that win feels pretty good.
Absolutely. And I think there's so much to go into it. One, considering you had the overtime loss last year that was absolutely heartbreaking at home against Seattle. And this is not a poor Seattle team. This is a very talented roster offensively, and the defense did have some struggles. Obviously, you're not hoping for 27 points to be scored on you every week because you can't count on, 40 some odd points being put up by your offense every week. Maybe you can if you're Ben Johnson and the Lions, but probably not the safest bet. Regardless, you talked about that panic button, and I think the biggest thing in that is we went from being, if this is the panic button, and this is how close we were on Jared Goff, you went from here to here and moved how much further away from pressing that button. Yes, he went 18 for 18, and that does take a complete offensive effort. It does take, receivers, being in the same, but it takes a lot of personnel. It also takes a successful run game to have a successful pass game. It does take some give and take. So it was an all-around complete win. It was a great win featuring those amazing black uniforms. It took them so freaking long to bring that back. I don't understand why, because those are the best jerseys in the NFL, and it's not even close. Not a hot take. But again, it's what we knew the Lions were capable of doing because we saw it last year. The trickery with Ben Johnson. I mean, I just got excited when I saw J-Mo high-stepping at the 30-yard line. I mean, talk about brass balls. You got 30 yards to run, and he's already celebrating.
And it didn't fucking matter. He had no chance.
Everybody knew he
was
still gone. He was still gone. And, you even got Laporta involved, which was a huge complaint that Laporta wasn't getting involved enough. No, he didn't have a Sam Laporta level involvement like it was last year, but you got him a few touches. You obviously had Amon-Ra. You had J-Mo, you had Jameer, you had bowling ball David Montgomery, who just seems to be running people over consistently. And how many turnovers?
No, I don't think. Yeah.
Zero. That's the biggest name of the game. You can't have those, miscues, those turnovers, especially against elite offensive teams. And that is what I'm going to classify Seattle as. I know you're probably sitting there thinking, Geno Smith, what the fuck are you talking about?
Holy hell, he tore us up. Tore us up.
Tore us
pressured
up
every play.
Not only that,
fucking passing yards.
But I still think, and even, with how he is rated, it's not like he's rated poorly. I think DK Metcalf is one of the more underrated receivers in the entire NFL. I mean, how many guys did it take for us to tackle him yesterday? At least 2 or 3. Every single time the ball was thrown his direction. And
Fuck tackling,
again,
dude. There were times we couldn't guard him. Carlton Davis
Carlton
didn't
Davis,
look great
Carlton,
against. I
the
mean, it was a
secondary
battle, but
struggled.
still.
The secondary struggled, and that has been, a huge, point of struggle since the beginning. It's not a perfect secondary. Terry Arnold is a rookie. He's going against big dogs. He's going to make mistakes, even, ones where, like you said, he was getting flagged, it seemed, every other play. There were a lot of penalties. There were, things that weren't great. At the end of the day, the NFL, and I've said it before and I'll say it again, the NFL is a win type league. It doesn't matter how you got there. It matters that you got there. You can say that. You can't necessarily say that about college. You can't necessarily say that about, God, I don't even know. I wouldn't
Basically,
necessarily
any
say
other
that.
sport.
Exactly. I think you could probably say that about hockey a little bit. But the NFL is a win league. And when you have that on primetime and you have that talent, I mean, we have Amon-Ra throwing back to Jared Goff. What more could you want for when Ben Johnson is willing to pull those plays out? And I don't know if you saw the interview, but Goff actually did say that that play has been called before, and unfortunately they did not get the right read. So it does show that, at least that in itself, that this team is on the same page personnel-wise, which is something Detroit Lions fans have not seen before this past year ever. Not just good players, but great coaching along with it. And the people that were it also, I'm not gonna lie, at the end of the game, the first thing I thought of again was that stupid Dan Campbell shit where people were leaking his address. Who's leaking his address now? Who's leaking his address? Sorry, he didn't give Goff the game ball, but who's leaking his address now?
That's the
Nobody.
thing. We talked about no one ever deserving this, but the fact that it
Of
takes
all
like
people,
one loss and a struggle to get this out of Michigan state of Michigan fans, sort of tells you how fucking spoiled we are. Can't have shit in Detroit. We can't have nice things if this is how we're going to treat them, man. We
exactly.
can't. We go decades and decades of every single sport possible in this state, not just struggling, but being very, very bad. And now we've got some wins under our belt and we do that type of shit. It feels Bush League to me.
Absolutely.
Regardless.
And on that note, I do want to get this in really quick because they were talking about this during the Tigers game today. The play-by-play guys were. I have never, and again, I'm from Detroit. We both are. So we're going to see, if we're going to see something sports-wise, it's going to be from the Detroit, point of view. With that being said, I have never seen an entire city of sports teams support each other like this city does. Where you've got Max Clark, who was drafted, a year ago, consistently tweeting about this team. You've got Dylan Larkin going off, the captain of the Red Wings, and talking about how he was pacing during the ninth inning like all of us fans were. You've got the same shit going for the Lions. I have not been to a Lions, Tigers, or Red Wings game, or even attended a game in a season the last 3 years, where I have not seen multiple games where there's some other team's players there. I know that was a weird sentence, but if you're at a Lions game, chances are there's someone from the Wings, Tigers, or Pistons there. If you're at a Tigers game, same goes. And it's not just a show. Like these players will all talk about being invested in their sports teams. And it does show what we've talked about so many times, an investment in the city of Detroit and its success in sports that was non-existent so many years ago. What feels like so many years ago. It was so many years that was non-existent.
The city cares, man.
It's
It
so
wraps itself.
cool.
The city wraps itself around these teams. It supports them. It loves on them. It's really cool to see not only that happening, but also, the other teams supporting each other too. That quote, by the way, that you referenced, Dylan Larkin saying it was the ninth inning. I wouldn't even call it pacing. I was speed walking in the basement watching the guys close it out. That's cool to see. That's really, really fun. And to see JMO at the Tigers games, and it's just fun. It's cool to see. I do have two quick things on the Lions. Number one, we're not out of the woods yet. We've mentioned it before on this podcast.
Oh, yeah.
We'll say it again. This is a very, very difficult schedule coming up. It started, of course, on Monday. big win to start it. That's massive to get you momentum going into bye week at the Cowboys, at the Vikings. You got home against Tennessee, who's looking like a circus show right now. But then you go back on the road for the Packers and the Texans. That is a gauntlet. That is 4 out of 5 games where you might not even be favored. These are difficult teams. These are difficult games. Get ready because the Lions aren't even favored in the division anymore. The Vikings are. And I'm not saying they haven't deserved it, but you got to be careful saying 3-1, big primetime win. We're back. We're back to last season's form. It's perfect. You've got 4 of your next 5 games on the road, each of them against difficult opponents. Stay ready. Be careful. You're going to lose some of those games. Don't immediately give up hope like you did a few wins ago.
And it's so easy too, though, at the end of the day. Like when you lose, like you lost against Tampa, which, it does it's the kind of the opposite of what I was saying. Like that was an ugly loss. A win is a win, but you can have very ugly losses. And be prepared for one of those games to be an ugly loss. It's not like those were non-existent last year. This wasn't a perfect team. I think, what was the final record? 12-5? Can you believe this team lost to the fucking Chicago Bears last year?
Actually,
lost to the Packers on Thanksgiving.
Oh,
we still made it all the way to the NFC
Forgot about
Championship.
that.
And that's where, it's Tigers had a 0.2% chance. Like I'll always say, and it's something that, you have to remind yourself. And I think I will give Detroit's, fans some credit. It's not like you haven't experienced the pain of losing like that before, and it is so easy to get down that route of all it takes is one loss and you're screwed. It is so easy to go down that path. But it was easy to go down that path when you didn't have as much talent as these rosters do. Hell, you're going to go through that with the Red Wings this year. The Red Wings play 82 games. I don't really know much about how you're going to feel with the Pistons on that. I think, you might catch a few more losses there. And
Yes.
Speaking of Wings, obviously the season starts next Thursday. We will have a full Red Wings preview for you next week on the pod, and look out for a few blogs on that. It's a perfect time to be not just a sports fan, but especially, like you've said, a Michigan and Detroit sports fan, where all of these teams are. When was the last time you had all these teams playing at the same time? Lions, Wings,
pretty good.
Lions, Wings, and I guess at this time of year, because we've had the Wings and Tigers playing it, I think, at the same time a few times. That happens every year. But you've got the Tigers in the playoffs. You've got the Wings off to what will hopefully be a great start. The Lions are off to a great start. It's a great time to be a sports fan. And I'm not gonna lie, and part of me is still so speechless, because I don't know if I thought I'd live to see this day at some points. I kind of doubted it. But this is not going to be an easy series for this Tigers team, going back to that. I do want to hint on that.
I know the way you talked about it sounded like
there is a reason that there's a reason that this team is only getting paid $18.8 million. I can promise you right now, we will not get swept. I can promise that. I will undoubtedly promise that we will not get swept.
The best pitcher in baseball.
But when this Cleveland team gets hot, they get hot. So it's up to Detroit to continue to stay hot, continue to, hit the ball, continue to drive in runs, continue to get, much needed outs, even if you have to make your defense work. It's not going to be a strikeout every at bat. It's great when they happen, but you're going to have a dive from Riley every once in a while. You're going to have a line out to Torque, like to end the game yesterday, where everybody, you took a half second where your heart stopped and you couldn't breathe.
Yeah.
And you saw Jason Hayward make contact. It's going to be some of those. But at the end of the day, you've got a chance to, you take a game in Cleveland. You've got 2 games at home to seal up the series, especially with Scoobs on the mound in Cleveland.
Feels good. It's a possibility. I'm split, to be honest. I feel good about it, but I don't know where my money will go and on which game. Certainly whenever Scoobs is on the mound, money lines being hammered. Speaking of, we do have some picks of the week. I already gave away my Michigan pick, what we always do on the show, a Michigan-related pick, and then just an anything else pick. My Michigan was the +114 I mentioned, or honestly, whatever it ends up as, which at the moment seems will be positive odds, whatever it is, on Michigan to beat Washington this weekend. It feels like a shoo-in. We talked about it. I'm surprised we're not favored. To be underdogs is very surprising to me for this team, regardless of the fact that it's in Washington. My non-Michigan pick, however, is going to be an NFC North pick. We're staying in the division in the NFL. I've got Justin Jefferson anytime, Tutty. Yes, the Jets defense is very solid. Yes, he does not have a good matchup with Sauce Gardner, but I don't really give a damn. He is balling. Sam Darnold is balling.
Yeah,
I know we should hate the Vikings, but they're
where did
kind of
that
a nice
come from?
story right now.
But where did that come from? Can we? I
His
know we're
ass,
a
I
Michigan
guess.
sport. We're a Michigan sports pod. Where did Sam Darnold come from? JJ got hurt and everybody wrote this team off.
Here's the thing, though. Looping it back into Michigan almost immediately, it does make me feel a little bit better that there were talks JJ wouldn't start week 1. It did make me feel better that it was a genuine fucking battle, that everything we heard out of camp from every reporter was like, yeah, JJ's trending towards being the end of season starter, but this Sam Darnold kid, he's in the mix. To see his career resurge is cool. It does give me a little sort of back of the mind, like, yeah, I take, some of that blame off of JJ for being in a battle with him. But yeah, it comes out of nowhere. The O-line is like okay. It's not great. The run game's been a plus at times, but inconsistent. His receivers are very solid. Getting to throw to Jordan Addison and Justin Jefferson is a blessing, but that doesn't mean you can the balls he's been fitting in, the tight spaces he's been fitting balls into pause is incredible. He's been doing a phenomenal job under center. I know we're a Michigan sports podcast. I know you've got the Lion behind you, but it's fun. They're a fun team. It's cool to see, and them especially beating up on the Packers was sort of surprising.
Yeah, if there's two teams that I hope both lost a game, it'd be those two. Just throwing that out there, but I'm gonna go. The line I don't think is out yet, but when it does come out, I'm going to go 6+ Tariq Skubal strikeouts, so 6 or more. Skubal in Cleveland in his career. I'm going to pull the numbers back up.
And this is just for whatever game he starts?
Which I think will likely be the first.
Probably.
They've got off until Saturday, and he pitched yesterday, so he should have enough time. In Cleveland in his career, 2-1. A combined 16 strikeouts. Last time out was July 22nd in Cleveland. Got the win with 6 Ks. Now, he did go 7 innings. Crazy part of that is he gave up 10 hits. But if he's still going 7 innings when he's given up 10 hits and he only gave up 1 run.
True.
Do not be shocked if that's the type of game it is again. Where people get
yesterday,
on base.
He worked himself out of a jam.
Do not be shocked if not only just him, but that defense has to work him out of jams in that game 1. Either way, 6+ strikeouts for Skubal. I normally never bet on the Tigers because I always feel like I'm a curse, but this one just feels too good to not take. So that's what we're going to ride with. Non-Michigan pick, going to the Sun Belt, which has not been nice to me this year, especially with App State. And we're taking Coastal Carolina -5 against Old Dominion. I always forget that Old Dominion has a football team. And Coastal Carolina, for losing Grayson McCall and losing a lot of their talent last year, has been a pretty fucking good team. So we're gonna take the points with Coastal Carolina.
What is that
plus
at
6 strikes. I think it's -5 the spread is 5 at -110.
Gotcha. Plus 100, by the way, on that Justin Jefferson anytime tutty. As it stands right now, to be honest, I expected it to be negative odds, so I'll take whatever. I would take whatever you can get there.
You're going with that Michigan pick as your money line? Well, you are the one.
Hell yeah, brother.
You've now bet on the Tigers money line both games they won. You took that Michigan spread last week. I think you took the USC spread, which I thought was going to be the trend, is you were just going to start betting against Michigan teams. and then they would come out and win. But you've shown that, my superstitions are just apparently fake, which I will never
They're
actually
just
cop
that.
to.
They're superstitions.
Yeah, they're real. They're my thing, and that's what I'm going to go with. Very sporadic episode, but it's because there's so many emotions going.
There's a lot
I
going
mean,
on.
the Red Wings are around the corner. The Tigers are playing Saturday. Hopefully, we will have the same mood next week. And I'm going to let you do the outro because, as our 2 or 3 listeners know, I'm awful at these. So take it away.
Oh, of course. The final note should be Michigan sports fans, pat yourself on the back. As unless you're like 12 years old, it's not always like this. It's not always this good. Usually, it's the opposite. Every team is losing all the time. So enjoy it, savor it while it happens. Who knows? It could be next week. It could be 10 years when this winning stops. Regardless, we'll be here for all of it, win or loss. Pure Michigan sports. You see it, trying to point up in the corner. Pure Michigan Sports on Instagram, on TikTok, on YouTube, on Substack, wherever you want to listen, watch, follow, do so. Pure Michigan Sports. Pistons and the Red Wings seasons are coming up. They may not involve as many wins as we're seeing right now, but we'll preview them nonetheless. Until next time, it's been Pure Michigan Sports.